Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm glad that you could join us today. My name is George Ferrari, and I serve as CEO of your community foundation. This is Let's Talk for June of 2021. It's hard to imagine, but here we are on June 1st. These are programs that we offer for 30 minutes once a month to allow you to learn from leaders in the mission-driven sector, to learn how pandemic recovery and rebuilding efforts are taking place, and also to center issues of racial justice as we rebuild for a more equitable society. So we're very happy today that we have with us Megan Barber, who is the Executive Director of the Community Arts Partnership. We've had previous Let's Talks on all sorts of issues, things like food systems and housing and workers, and we do have that information on our website. A couple of dates to keep in mind. We don't have a Let's Talk scheduled for July yet, but we have two events we want to draw your attention to in June. So on June 23rd, that happens to be Giving is Gorgeous, that 24-hour online day of giving, and encourage you to get engaged and get active in supporting organizations that in the mission-driven sector that you'd like to support, and maybe pick a new one that you haven't supported before. We also have our annual celebration. It was originally scheduled at Community Foundation for June 17th. We have postponed that for 1 week to June 24th after we learned that Southside Community Center is having their annual meeting at exactly the same time. So in our ongoing commitment to racial justice, we wanted to provide an opportunity for folks to do both those activities and for us to be engaged in the Southside Community Center annual celebration at noon on June 17th. So ours is pushed back 1 week to June 24th at noon. So without further ado, I'll invite Megan Barber to share with you information from the Community Arts Partnership. We will have a chance for questions and dialogue a little bit later after Megan has presented. And if you're able to enter those into the chat box, Nancy Masici, my colleague here at the Community Foundation, will be monitoring those. So Megan, we'll turn it over to you. And I believe you have a PowerPoint for us.
I do. Thanks so much, George and Amy and Nancy and all of you for being here today. I see lots of familiar faces and I'm really happy to be joining you for a half hour here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And presentation mode. All right. So let's talk arts and culture in Tompkins County. Today, I will give you a little introduction to the Community Arts Partnership and talk about our arts and culture ecosystem here in Tompkins County. Then we'll take a look at the impact of the pandemic year and lessons learned. We'll look together at what's happening now and some things to look forward to this summer, and then talk about ways to help and get involved. The Community Arts Partnership serves as the Arts Council for Tompkins County. Our mission is to strengthen the arts across the county by providing services and resources for artists and art groups, and to lead collaboration among the arts, government, education, business, and the community at large. And we do this in a variety of ways, including grants and programs. Our grant administration, we administer about $300,000 of grant funding a year from the New York State Council on the Arts, the Tompkins County Tourism Department, private foundations and donors, giving that money out to arts organizations, arts groups, and artists around the county. We also have some events that you're probably familiar with, at least some of. We just wrapped up our Spring Rights annual literary festival, which was really awesome, had about 100 local poets and writers and playwrights with panel discussions and readings. We put on the Greater Ithaca Art Trail, which invites people to explore a series of artist studios, both live and virtual, around the county in 2 big weekends in October and then throughout the year. We have traditionally held the artist market, and due to the pandemic have not done that last year or this year. But we're really excited for 2022 when we take over the farmers market, fill all the booths with artists, and have a wonderful day at the artist market. And then we also have our own gallery. It's the Cap Art Space here at the Tompkins Center for History and Culture on the Commons. Just opened in May for live exhibits. And this month in June, we're showing Barbara Mink and Ivy Stevens Gupta. a really beautiful, colorful exhibit, and you can see it live or virtual. So I like to think of arts and culture in our area as an ecosystem, as a system of entities that all work to support each other. So there's arts and culture groups, which are kind of the big nonprofits that you might think of, our museums, our theaters, the Southside Community Center, Latino Civic Association, so those organizations. Then there's arts and culture programs or offerings that groups that maybe do a broader variety of things also have, like an arts piece, like after school programs, or towns that have concert series. Then there's our artists, performing artists, writers, visual artists, from professional to anyone who likes to do this kind of thing, who draws at home or plays music on the side. And then our funders, government funders, foundations, our higher education institutions, businesses, people like you that support this whole ecosystem. And then the audience, which is really kind of, well, I guess you can't say any of it's the main part, but none of this would be fun and fulfilling without audiences and people to perform for and make art for. So all of us together keep this system thriving. What happened in 2020? Well, you were all there, so but I'll just go over a few things. When the pandemic really became real, everything stopped. And this was true for arts and culture organizations. All of a sudden, shows were canceled, seasons were canceled, theaters shut down, just everything closed. And with this brought funding challenges, as you can imagine. Any organizations that relied on earned income, like ticket sales, that was no longer happening really until people started figuring out virtual events. But also other funding sources were challenged. A lot of our organizations rely on the Tompkins County tourism funding, which comes from the room tax, the hospitality tax here in Tompkins County. And when no one was coming to visit, the tax wasn't coming in. So things were shifting in the funding arena. There's an overdue focus on equity and anti-racism. There was and continues to be a call to honor the words Black Lives Matter and to end racism in all our systems. And this includes our arts and culture ecosystem. So organizations were trying to figure out our roles in promoting cultural equity. And I know a lot of organizations, including CAP, signed on with about 100 nonprofits in the area on a shared commitment to ending racism. And we've been continuing to work on that together throughout the year. And 2020 was a year of opportunities, both lost and gained. Kind of obviously things were lost when we shut down and, long hoped for performances couldn't come to be. But there were opportunities gained as well, especially as we began to convert to this virtual world and offering things online, and really opened up accessibility to our organizations in a new way, and invited in national audiences and international audiences to see what our county has to offer. So, the learning continues, as it always does. But as we make meaning of the year, I wanted to just call out a few particular insights. One is that arts are really essential to our recovery as a community. Arts and culture is an economic engine here in town, bringing in tourists, paying nonprofit workers and artists. And art art making helps us make meaning of this pandemic, helps us feel what we need to feel, feel some shared grief, feel some hope, shed some light on where we need to go together. This is all work that arts can do. I reached out to other organizations and asked about their lessons learned. And one thing that kept coming up, and the same for CAP, was that to keep the virtual offerings. We're all excited to go live, but the virtual isn't going to go away. And I'm really happy about that. I just think it opens up accessibility to people who, either because they're far away or it's just challenging to get out to live events. The virtual really added an exciting new dimension, and one that's going to be kept. And then we learned that this community cares. I've heard a lot of concern about arts organizations and artists and how is everyone doing. As far as I know, all organizations, are okay. And we're okay because of the support, both financial and moral support of this community, really came through to keep everybody afloat. And that is wonderful to know and to feel. So what are we looking at now? I was just thinking the other day, we had a couple weeks of drought, and it was right when my dad had planted corn, and it was just in the field, like in the dirt, not doing anything. And then it rained, and you could like watch it grow. It grew like 5 inches in a day or something. And I kind of feel like that's where we're at now, like just this growth of really interesting ideas and initiatives and offerings. I wanted to share this picture of Black Lives Matter at school. This is a mural that the school district, the arts department, spent some time this year creating. Each of those little pieces is an artwork by a student, which just to me really illustrates both art groups addressing anti-racism and equity, and then also addressing equity in the arts. And this was a theme that kind of carries through a lot of organizations. I also clipped this poster to the Odyssey. This is a performance that will be taking place at the end of the summer, I think. It's a collaboration between the Hangar Theater and the Cherry Arts. And it sounds like it's gonna involve stories from our community, as well as the grand story of the Odyssey, an outdoor performance. There's a lot of this collaboration and trying new things. And then the Creative Recovery Fund is a fund that CAP launched this spring, which is really about putting artists and art groups to work with the recovery from the quadruple pandemics: COVID, economic recession, racism, and climate disaster. And this fund has been generously seeded by the Community Foundation, and we're continuing to raise money with a goal that we've almost met of raising $20,000 to give back out to artists and art groups. And I'm so excited to see what projects come through for this, and I will share those as we learn what they are. So it feels so good that things are opening up. Summer 2021, there's lots happening. Before everybody got on the call, I was just talking about how I went to the Cherry Theater's walking play this weekend, Trapdoor. So there's lots of events and offerings, arts and culture summer camps, including the Community Unity Music Education Program and Opus Ithaca. Live performances, a bunch of the theaters are putting together outdoor theaters, and the State Theater is doing a bunch of outdoor performances. But virtual performances continue as well. The Civic Ensemble has a great lineup this summer, and I just learned about the the Perspectives 360 Film Festival, which is an Asian American film festival coordinated right here in Ithaca, and that is happening in June. Greater Ithaca Art Trail is launching next month, and we've got 10 new artists on board, which I'm very pleased about. All the museums, History Center, Science Center, galleries are open up. And there's new initiatives happening. I just was introduced to the Freedom Institute of Arts and Advancement, which is taking root right here in Ithaca. It's a BIPOC Arts Institute that Black Hands Universal was putting together, and it sounds really exciting. Ways to help. Go, whether you go with your feet or you go with your mouse, you know, attend things, take part, fill your soul with art. If you have money to spend it. Buy tickets, buy artwork, go to artist studios, just show your support in that way. And in the same line, give. You know, general donations are always so welcome. By our nonprofit organizations really goes a long way to help continue to meet our arts and culture missions. Promote if there's an event you're excited about or something that you loved. Tell your friends, encourage other people to partake. And then thank. I heard a message from a musician this winter that said, you know, if you download my album, like, tell me what you thought about it. Let me know, you know, send your thanks. So I think just that human touch, if you saw something you loved or that meant something to you, you know, let the artist know. And all of these things, I recommend that we do with an eye towards cultural equity and just really intentionally supporting the creative expression of Black and Indigenous people and people of color in our community. And there you have it. These are some wonderful faces from our Spring Arts Festival. And I'm ready for questions.
Megan, thank you so much. I learned two new things I didn't know anything about: the Asian American cinema projects and the work of Black Hands Universal for the Freedom Institute of Arts and Advancement, and the work that you do at Community Arts Partnership and your team does really helps build that infrastructure for the incredibly creative and generous community. So excited about you being in that position and the Community Arts Partnership being an asset we have here locally. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? I don't know if we have any questions in.
I have one, George.
Yep. Go ahead.
I think it's no surprise that the COVID devastated a lot of nonprofits and was very difficult for the arts and culture sector. Do you have a sense of how long the recovery might be? I love the idea, as you said, you know, spend, buy, give, thank. Do you have a sense?
No. You know, there are some great things like the shuttered venue operating grants. That's federal funding to support the big performance venues. I know a bunch of our area arts organizations applied for those and are waiting to hear, as well as, you know, continued use of PPP funding. So as far as I know, you know, groups are doing okay and just continuing to move ahead, and we'll all see how it all shakes out and how we can work together to support each other.
Mm-hmm. I believe that I heard on this morning's All Things Equal on WHCU, Ben was on from the History Center talking a little bit about curating this lived experience. We're in living history, right, in the midst of this pandemic, and artists help us understand it and evolve from it and thrive through it. Are you seeing new pieces of art and new artwork that speaks to the pandemic specifically, or is it too early yet to see that? I don't know.
No, there is. Part of the Spring Rights Literary Festival was a piece called Pandemic Dreams that Story House Ithaca put together. that was a collection of, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 video clips addressing the experience. And it was really moving and wonderful
Mhm.
to see together. And the exhibit in our gallery right now, it's not called Pandemic Dreams, but something. It is also a response to the pandemic. So yeah, the art is happening.
That's great. Yeah.
I have
You can't
another
quarantine
question.
art. Yep. Nancy.
Another question. How do the local artists seem to be as things are opening up? And you can address that maybe through mental health as well.
Hmm,
Yeah.
interesting question. Um, yeah, so I spoke with some artists earlier this spring. I wanted to check in and just see how people were doing, and reached out to hear. And it's been a challenge, especially people who depend on having gigs, which weren't happening, or having like an artist market, which wasn't happening. But at the same time, a lot of artists kind of, whether this is right or wrong, they do the work on the side and they have like another job to help pay the bills. So it seems like people were hanging in there, and some had really enjoyed kind of that quiet time to reflect and renew and gather new ideas and steam. And then others, maybe more on the extroverted side, were like, I need people. I can't create art without people. So like all of us, I think there were different responses to it.
I'm wondering if there's anything that, because of the pandemic that forced so much to be virtual, that you might have found is going to stay. Any kind of, I like going out and seeing things and feeling things and touching things, and whether it's performance art or art, but anything that might be available to those who prefer to stay home and look at things on a laptop, a hybrid sort of feel.
Yeah, I think a lot will stay. I think it'll be a both and kind of situation. Right now, for our gallery, you can come in live to the building, or you can go onto the virtual gallery. And I think that's the case for a lot of galleries for sure. And then it does seem like a mix. I know the Q Good Chamber Orchestra, you can go live or you can live stream. I think we'll see a lot of that mix continuing as we go ahead.
Josie McAllister, I just wanted to point out, if you haven't looked at a link in the chat box, Josie, thank you for posting very important link to art that's in direct response to the increase in anti-Asian violence, anti-Asian American violence due to the pandemic. So people are speaking to the
Great.
really hard and challenging issues and expressing very important concepts here. And I did not know about that, so I very much appreciate seeing that. Thank you.
Yeah, that looks great. I don't have any more questions.
What should we be looking forward to, Megan, next in the next year as we finish out 2021? You've alluded to the artist market coming back in 2022, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I wish I had a crystal ball, so I hesitate to say, but I'm just hopeful for, continued creative expression, continued just new. I just feel like it's such an interesting time to be alive. And, I think a lot is happening. New connections are being made between people and groups. And I just look forward to seeing, along with all of you, seeing what happens.
Absolutely. And Julia put something in the chat as well about Civic Ensemble's upcoming production that deals with mental health and the criminal justice environment. And so we are so fortunate to have just an embarrassment of riches and opportunities here in ways that people connect in the artistic ecosystem to create, to express, to engage, to inspire. And I really appreciate Community Arts Partnership being a key component of that, and a partner in our local funders group as well. It's important for folks in the philanthropic sector, as you mentioned before, that you move money into our community from NISCA and other places. That's an
Right.
exciting role for you as well. Well, this is a start to learning more about what's going on. Things are changing almost every week. We really appreciate that you've joined us today here at the Community Foundation's Let's Talk about Arts and Culture. I want to thank you all for taking time to be here. Megan, if you could put your contact email in the chat, that would be helpful for folks that want to get a hold of you. Keep checking the Community Arts Partnership website. There's lots of really good information on that as well. I want to thank our staff here at the Community Foundation for putting these Let's Talks together. And just as a quick review, we don't have one scheduled in July, but we do encourage you to certainly connect with some of the great work that's going on at the Southside Community Center at their annual celebration on June 17th. There's also a June 19th, Juneteenth celebration going on in the community here. And then our own annual celebration will be on June 24th. Thank you all for being with us here at Let's Talk, and get outside and enjoy this marvelous weather today.
Great. Thanks so much.